Hey everyone, I wanted to go through a couple of the graphing problems that are on the rectangular coordinate systems homework. So this is the one that I have here. Um, you may, and this is question number two, you may have one that has an integer as the coefficient on x, but I happen to have a decimal here as my coefficient. So I went ahead and filled in the t-table because it's really more the graphing part of this problem that I'm concerned about than the t-chart part because I'm pretty sure everybody will be good there. Um, my open math can be a little bit difficult as far as the graphs are concerned. And by difficult, I mean that it can be pretty strict about where you put the points and everything and exactly what you do graph on these. And so I wanted to just show you a couple of these that ask for different things with the graph so that you'll know how to handle the ones that are a little bit weirder. Okay. So this first one, question number two, asks us to plot the five solutions found above and then graph the equation. So what this means is we actually are going to put a dot at each one of those five solutions. Mine being at the halves make it just a little bit more difficult. Sorry about that. And then once we get the five solutions, we're going to graph the equation, and we're going to do that by choosing the line tool because all of the equations here are going to be linear. So I choose the line tool, and then if you'll notice, there are red dots on these different tools. Those are showing you what points to choose when you're graphing something. So for a straight line, you can actually pick any 2 points on the graph. It doesn't matter which two you choose. And it will graph the line from those 2 points. You don't have to drag and graph it yourself or anything like that. You just pick a couple lines. So working through this one's going to seem a little bit redundant because you are going to plot 5 points with this tool, the dot tool, and then you're going to come back and you're going to do the line. Now, obviously, it's got that explanation down here too, but sometimes it can be a little tricky to do this. So we're going to try it and we're going to see if it likes where I put my dots. Most of you guys probably have a computer, Chromebook or whatever to do this on. And so this works much better with a mouse than it does like a touch screen. So if you are working this on your phone or if you're using an iPad, it may be a little trickier with you. Also, I will say this, if you get a problem and it's got a partial whole number, like a decimal or a fraction here as the coefficient on x, if you want to work part of it like I have here and then generate a similar question to see if you can get a little bit better number, you can do that. We have 100 different generations of questions that you can do. You can only do 3 tries per question, but there are 100 that you can regen and get new numbers for. So I have certainly seen plenty here that don't have that decimal value. So if you are struggling getting it graphed because of that, feel free to regenerate it and see if you can get an integer here rather than a decimal. All right, so let's get some of these points plotted, and I don't think I have the right tool yet. All right, I want to click down here on this dot, and then I'm going to click on -2, 4. Notice it turns into a pencil so I can get a little bit better pinpoint. That's why doing it with a mouse is so much better than with your finger on like a tablet or a touch screen, is because you can get that pencil in really good. Now, when you graph on the halves in MyOpenMath, you kind of have to eyeball it, and you do go halfway between grid lines when you do that. So this next one is at -1 and then 2.5. So -1 on the X and 2.5 on the Y. So I am going to guesstimate that that's right there. And then the next one's at 0, 1. So that one's pretty easy. The next one is at 1 and then -0.5. 0.5. So maybe about right there. That one might have been a little bit low, but maybe not. And then 2 and -2. So right here. Okay, those look like a pretty decent line. Maybe got a little bit of a curve in it because they're not exactly in the right place, but that should be okay. This thing's pretty sensitive, but at the same time, it does a pretty good job if you are, reasonably close. like you would be with a mouse. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the line tool, and all I have to do this time is click two of the points that I already have, and that's going to draw my line for me. So I'm going to choose this one, and then you'll notice that the line attaches itself, and then like I said, you can pick any of the rest of these up here, and I can check to see that my points are in pretty good alignment there as well. So I'm going to put the second one right there, and let's see how I did. I'm going to feel bad if that um, turns red instead of green, but we'll see what happens. Okay, it liked it. It took it. So if you're struggling with that, try it a couple of times. If you're really having trouble with it, if at all possible, if you can come up to Northeast, I am there until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So especially if you'll email me and say, "Hey, I need to drop by and just have you help me get my line and my points lined up and all of that on the graph," then I'll be glad to help you with it. Sometimes I have to go in and do it for some of my students at Northeast, especially with the iPads. Um, and I have been known to, it's if it's correct and I go in there and somebody says, "Hey, check my problem," I go in and it is correct. It's just not taking it because maybe you can't get it just perfectly right in the right spot. I will give you credit for it. Okay. So, I mean, if we're having a lot of trouble with it, just let me know and I will dig into it a little bit. But with a computer, it's not too bad. Now, they're not all like that, okay? Here's another one here that just says fill in the t-table below for the equation, then graph the line on the grid by selecting two of the points on your table. The thing that does make this one a little tricky is the wording of the instructions there. This problem is not like this one, okay? In this problem, they don't want you to do the dot first and graph 2 points and then do the line. Since the line requires 2 points, what this wording actually means is just do the line, okay? So you would plug your numbers in here, like this one's going to be, let's see, -3 plus 3, 0. 0 plus 3 is 3, and then 3 plus 3 is 6. Whoops, I was not in the box. So I would go down here and grab, if it's not already highlighted, the line tool, and then I am going to click two of those 3 points. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit because this grid is really small on my computer. The -1, 0, that is going to be your x-intercept. So it should be about right there. And then I'm going to do 0, 3. That's your y-intercept. Okay. And that's our line. Now you could do 1, 6 if you rather. That would be fine. And let's see how we did. Okay. Ah, got a green, so we're in good shape. Okay. All right, we'll continue on down. I'm not going to do all of these, but I do want to talk about them. So this one says use only 2 points to graph. Again, that means use the line. And there's no confusion here at all because there is only that one line tool. You have to remember that in MyOpenMath, since it's open resources, these problems come from a lot of different instructors all across the country, all amateur coders. You do have to write these problems in code, and so they're not all perfect, but they are pretty good. And the MyOpenMath grapher is not a bad grapher. It's just very particular sometimes about where you place your cursor when you click. Um, so it's a little trying sometimes, but this one's ideal because it doesn't give you the options. It just says, "Hey, you're going to use this." It doesn't give you the option to do the dot. So for it, you're going to grab any two of these 5 points you choose. Once you get them all done, you'll tap those 2 points and it'll do the line just like the last problem. Same thing here. Graph the 2 points you found on the table to graph the line. That one also doesn't give you an option. This one says, now graph the linear equation in the grid below. If the numbers on the chart get too big for plotting on this graph, evaluate some smaller values in addition to the ones given so that you can plot the 2 points. The problems that we have with this one is this particular grid is a little small. It only goes to 5 in each one of the directions. So when you plot these points, occasionally you will wind up with one, like the one I have is great. I would be able to pick any of the points I get off of this one to plot it. But you may have a big enough coefficient on X or a big enough Y intercept that you can't get two of these points to actually sit on this grid. When that happens, you can just pick whatever X's you want. Like if you chose 0, notice 0 is not already here. We've got -3, 1, 2, and 3. So if I were to pick 0, -2, -1, those would all kind of still be within this group, but they would give me some different points. So you may have to continue the t-chart a little ways on your own to get 2 points that you can plot. And then this one, plot the 2 points you found on the table. Now this one goes back to just doing the dots. Oops, I did one accidentally right there. And that brings me to this point. If you do mess up and hit your grid, which happens pretty often, and it's not in the space or the place that you want it, just hit clear all. You will have to go back and do it. We don't have an undo button, which is unfortunate because it would be nice to be able to back out of that so that you could keep some of the stuff you graphed, but we do have the clear all button, and that way you don't have to waste a submission when you know what you've graphed is not correct. So on this one, you will plot the X and Y intercepts, which is what you're getting in this little table, and you'll just draw those with a dot. And since that's the only option down here, you don't have to question whether or not you're supposed to graph a line. You're not, because it doesn't give you that option. Okay, so the other type of graph that's included in this set of homework is the circle graph. You have a couple of those here on the end. They are also already, you have all the other options eliminated. So you just have the circle option down here, so you don't have to worry about clicking the wrong graph. The circle, if you'll look at it, there's one red dot in the center, so you need the center point of the circle, and then there's one dot on the circumference. So what you'll do is you'll find the center point, and then you will pick a point that's going to be on the outside of that circle using the radius. Let's do this one for example. Draw a circle with center at -1, 0. So I'm going to do that first. I'm sorry, -1, 1. I said the wrong thing. So -1, 1. There's my center point. Now notice what happens when I drag that pin out. I get my circle, right? The radius is 3. So what we want to do is follow one of the grid lines away from that center point, either to the right or to the left, up or down 3 units. We only need one other point. So 1, 2, 3. Click there, and that's it. Okay, guys. So you don't have to be scared of these graphing problems that are on here. They do behave a little oddly sometimes. So if you've had a little bit of trouble with them, just go back and try them again. If you're still having trouble with them, you just cannot get them to work out before Thursday, let me know, and I will either go in and look at your answer, and if it's close enough to where I know that you were graphing it correctly, that MyOpenMath is just being a pain, I'll give you the credit for them. Or if you want to try to come by the office, 324 McCoy Hall on the Boonville campus at Northeast, if you will send me a campus message and let me know when you're coming, just so I'm sure to be around the office and not down the hallway or somewhere when you come by, I will help you get it graphed. All right? Okay. I will see you guys later.